The nurse had just placed the warm, crying bundle of joy into Evelyn's arms. She was exhausted, sweaty, and happier than she had ever been in her life. She looked up, expecting to see tears of joy in her husband's eyes. Instead, she saw his mother standing at the foot of the bed, holding a manila envelope. Beatrice didn't ask to hold the baby. She didn't ask how Evelyn was. She simply threw the envelope onto Evelyn's legs. "Sign it, Evelyn," she sneered. "The paternity test is pending, but the divorce is non-negotiable." Evelyn looked at her husband, Richard, silently begging him to say something. He just checked his watch. They thought they were discarding a poor, helpless orphan. They had no idea they had just declared war on the owner of the very hospital they were standing in. The sterile smell of the hospital room usually brought people comfort, a sign of cleanliness, of care. But in room 402 of St. Jude's Medical Center, the air was thick with a toxicity that no disinfectant could scrub away. Evelyn Sterling lay back against the pillows, her body aching with a profound, bone-deep weariness. It had been 14 hours of labor, 14 hours of agony to bring a new life into the world. In her arms lay Leo, a tiny, red-faced miracle wrapped in a standard-issue hospital blanket. His little chest rose and fell in a rhythm that should have stopped the world. "He's beautiful, isn't he, Rick?" Evelyn whispered, her voice raspy. She looked toward the window where her husband, Richard Thornton, stood. Richard didn't turn around. He was staring out at the parking lot, his knuckles white as he gripped the windowsill. He was wearing the navy blue Armani suit Beatrice, his mother, had picked out for him. He always looked impeccable, but today his posture screamed cowardice. "Richard!" A sharp, icy voice cut through the silence. Beatrice Thornton stepped out from the shadows near the door. The matriarch of the Thornton real estate empire was dressed as if she were attending a board meeting, not the birth of her first grandchild. Her pearls were real, her Chanel suit was tailored to within an inch of its life, and her expression was one of someone who had just stepped in something unpleasant. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you, Evelyn," Beatrice commanded. Evelyn tightened her hold on Leo. "Beatrice, I didn't know you were here. Where are the flowers? Or maybe a congratulations?" Beatrice let out a dry, humorless laugh. She walked to the foot of the bed, her heels clicking ominously on the linoleum floor. In her manicured hand, she held a thick, brown envelope. "Congratulations," Beatrice scoffed. "For what? For trapping my son with a child that probably isn't even his?" Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. "Excuse me? This is Richard's son. This is your grandson." "We'll see about that," Beatrice said, tossing the envelope onto the bed. It landed heavily against Evelyn's legs. "But that is a matter for the lawyers. This," she pointed a jagged red fingernail at the envelope, "is for now. Sign it." Evelyn's hands trembled as she reached for the envelope. She opened the clasp, pulling out a stack of legal documents. The bold text at the top made her breath hitch. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "Divorce?" Evelyn gasped, looking from the papers to Richard's back. "Rick, what is this? We just had a baby." Richard finally turned around. His face was pale, his eyes avoiding hers. "I'm sorry, Eve. Mother we think it's for the best." "For the best?" Evelyn's voice rose, cracking with emotion. "I just gave birth an hour ago. You held my hand while I was pushing. You told me you loved me." "That was the adrenaline talking," Beatrice interrupted, stepping between them. "Let's be realistic, Evelyn. You were a barista when Richard found you. You have no pedigree, no family name. You were a fun little rebellion for him, a phase. But now that there is a child involved, we cannot have the Thornton bloodline tainted by your mediocrity. Mediocrity? Evelyn stared at them. A strange heat began to rise in her chest, replacing the shock. I have supported Richard for 2 years. I organized his schedule. I proofread his proposals. I cooked his meals. I made him look competent. And you were paid with a roof over your head and clothes on your back, Beatrice spat. But the ride is over. Richard is engaged to be married to Sophia Kensington next month. The merger between our companies depends on it. Evelyn felt like she had been punched in the gut. Sophia, that venomous socialite? You've been cheating on me? Richard flinched. It's not cheating, Eve. It's business. The Kensington merger will save the company. We're in debt, Eve. Deep debt. You wouldn't understand. You don't know how money works. Evelyn almost laughed. The irony was so sharp it could cut glass. She looked down at little Leo, who was sleeping soundly, unaware that his father was selling them out for a merger. So that's it? Evelyn whispered, her voice dangerously calm. I signed this. And you just discard us? You sign it, Beatrice hissed, leaning in close, the smell of expensive, cloying perfume filling Evelyn's nose. And we give you a check for $10,000. Enough to get a trailer somewhere in the Midwest and disappear. If you refuse, we will use our legal team to prove you are an unfit mother. We will bury you in litigation until you are homeless, and we will take the child anyway. Beatrice pulled a gold Mont Blanc pen from her purse and uncapped it. Sign. Now, before I change my mind about the 10,000. Evelyn looked at Richard one last time. Rick, look at your son. If you let her do this, you will never see him again. I promise you that. Richard looked at the baby. For a second, his mask slipped. He looked pained. But then he looked at his mother, standing there like a general, and his spine collapsed. Just sign it, Eve. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Evelyn closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of her newborn. When she opened her eyes, the tears were gone. In their place was a cold, hard steel that Richard had never seen before. Give me the pen, she said quietly. Beatrice smirked triumphantly. Smart girl. Evelyn took the heavy gold pen. She didn't hesitate. She flipped to the signature page and signed her name with a flourish. Evelyn Sterling. There, Evelyn said, handing the papers back. Now get out. We'll be taking the baby for the DNA test now. Beatrice reached out. Touch him, Evelyn said, her voice dropping an octave. And I will scream so loud the police will be here in 3 minutes. You have your papers. You have your divorce. The custody hearing is pending the test, according to your own document. Until then, he stays with me. Get out. Beatrice pulled her hand back, looking slightly unnerved by the sudden shift in Evelyn's demeanor. Fine. Enjoy your few hours with him. Security will escort you out of the building in an hour. Don't expect a ride home. Beatrice turned on her heel and marched out. Richard lingered for a second, looking at Evelyn. I really am sorry, Eve, he mumbled. Save it for the bankruptcy court, Richard, Evelyn replied, staring straight ahead. Richard frowned, confused by the comment, but turned and followed his mother. The heavy door clicked shut, leaving Evelyn alone with the hum of the medical equipment. Evelyn waited exactly 10 seconds. Then she shifted Leo to her left arm and reached for the cheap, cracked smartphone on the bedside table. The burner phone she used for her life as a housewife. She ignored it and reached into the hidden lining of her diaper bag, pulling out a sleek, black satellite phone that looked like a piece of military hardware. She dialed a single number. This is Sebastian, a crisp, British voice answered on the first ring. Sebastian, Evelyn said, her voice strong and commanding. Code red. The facade is over. Initiate protocol, Phoenix." There was a pause on the other end, followed by the sound of typing. "Understood, Ma'am. I see your GPS is active at St. Jude's. Congratulations on the birth. Shall I assume the Thornton family was unsatisfactory?" "They handed me divorce papers in the recovery room, Sebastian," Evelyn said dryly. "And they offered me $10,000 to disappear." $10,000? Sebastian sounded genuinely offended. "That wouldn't cover your shoe budget for a week, Mom." "Exactly. Come get me. And Sebastian, bring the rolls, the Phantom. I'm done hiding." An hour later, the rain was coming down in sheets, turning the world outside St. Jude's Hospital into a grey, watery blur. Beatrice had been true to her word. 2 burly hospital security guards were standing by the door of Evelyn's room, tapping their feet impatiently. "Ms. Sterling," one of them said, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Thornton gave strict orders. You have to vacate the premises. The room is no longer paid for." Evelyn had dressed in the only clothes she had, a pair of grey sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She wrapped Leo tightly in the hospital blanket, shielding him from the draft. She stood up, wincing slightly at the pain in her abdomen, but she refused to show weakness. "I'm leaving," Evelyn said coolly. "Don't touch my bag." She walked past them, head held high, carrying her son through the sterile corridors. Nurses whispered as she passed. Beatrice had made a scene at the nurses' station, apparently telling everyone that Evelyn was a surrogate gone rogue who was trying to extort the family. The eyes following her were full of judgment. Let them look, Evelyn thought. They'll be working for me by tomorrow. She pushed through the automatic sliding doors and was hit by a wall of humid, cold air. The rain was relentless. There was no awning at this exit, the service exit Beatrice had instructed security to direct her to. Evelyn stood under the meager shelter of the doorframe, clutching Leo. Across the parking lot, she saw Richard's silver Mercedes speeding away, splashing mud onto the sidewalk. He hadn't even waited to see if she got a taxi. "Pathetic," she muttered. Suddenly, the rhythmic thrum-thrum of a powerful engine cut through the sound of the rain. A collective gasp went up from the few people smoking cigarettes near the entrance. Gliding through the rain like a panther was a Rolls-Royce Phantom, painted in a custom matte black finish. It was a vehicle that screamed power, wealth, and exclusivity. It moved silently, ignoring the ambulance-only lane markings, and pulled up directly in front of Evelyn. The back door didn't open immediately. Instead, the driver's side door opened, and a tall man in an immaculate charcoal suit stepped out. He didn't run, despite the rain. He opened a large, sturdy black umbrella and walked calmly around the car. It was Sebastian Vance. To the world, he was a high-powered corporate attorney. To Evelyn, he was her oldest friend and the chief operating officer of Sterling Global Industries. He stopped in front of Evelyn, bowing his head slightly. "Mum, my apologies for the delay. Traffic on the bridge was dreadful." The security guard who had followed Evelyn out dropped his clipboard. "Hey, you can't park that here." Sebastian turned his head slowly, fixing the guard with a glare that could freeze water. "This hospital is owned by the Sterling Trust, is it not?" Yeah, I think so," the guard stammered. "Then I suggest you step back before I have you reassigned to parking lot duty in Alaska," Sebastian said smoothly. He turned back to Evelyn, his expression softening instantly. And this must be the young Master Leo. "He's sleeping through the drama," Evelyn said, stepping under the umbrella Sebastian held for her. "A true Sterling, then." Sebastian smiled. He opened the rear suicide door. The interior was a sanctuary of cream leather and starlight roof lining. Evelyn slid into the seat, the comfort almost making her weep after the harsh hospital bed. Sebastian closed the door, shutting out the noise of the rain and the confused world outside. He slid into the driver's seat and looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Where to, Mom? The penthouse? The estate in the Hamptons?" Evelyn looked down at the divorce papers she had crumpled into the side pocket of her bag. She smoothed them out. "Take us to the Ritz-Carlton for tonight, Sebastian. I need a hot bath and room service. But first, hand me the tablet. I need to see the financials for Thornton Real Estate." Sebastian handed her a slim glass tablet from the passenger seat. "I took the liberty of pulling them up when you called. It's worse than you thought. They are leveraged to the hilt. Beatrice has been cooking the books to hide a $40 million deficit. The merger with Kensington is their only lifeline." Evelyn scrolled through the numbers, her eyes scanning the data with the speed of a supercomputer. She wasn't Evelyn the barista anymore. She was Evelyn Sterling, the heiress to a tech and energy fortune worth billions, a fortune she had built herself after inheriting a modest sum from her late father. She had gone undercover 2 years ago to experience normal life, to find someone who loved her for her, not her money. She thought she had found that in Richard. She was wrong. "The Kensington merger," Evelyn murmured. "Who is the lead investor financing the Kensington side of the deal?" Sebastian smiled, his eyes twinkling in the mirror. "That would be Vanguard Capital, ma'am." Evelyn stopped scrolling. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. "Vanguard Capital. That's one of our shell companies, isn't it?" "It is. We own 51% of the controlling interest in the funding for that merger." Evelyn looked out the window as the Rolls-Royce pulled away from the curb, leaving the confused security guards and the miserable hospital behind. "Sebastian," Evelyn said softly, "freeze the funding." "Mom, you heard me. Put a hold on the capital injection for the Kensington-Thornton merger. Cite due diligence concerns regarding leadership stability. If Beatrice wants a war, she's going to get a nuclear winter." "And regarding Mr. Richard?" Sebastian asked as they merged onto the highway. "He wants to marry Sophia for connections?" Evelyn stroked Leo's soft cheek. "Let him try. But first, send the divorce papers to our legal department. I want to countersue. Not for money. I want full custody, and I want to buy the mortgage on the Thornton family estate." "The estate has been in their family for 4 generations, Sebastian noted. "Exactly," Evelyn replied, her eyes flashing. "By the time Leo starts walking, I want that house to be his playroom, and I want Beatrice to be the one who hands me the keys." The car sped up, disappearing into the city lights. Evelyn Sterling was back, and she had a list. The presidential suite at the Ritz-Carlton was larger than the entire apartment Evelyn had shared with Richard. It was a world of Italian marble, Egyptian cotton, and panoramic views of a city that was currently being battered by the storm. Sebastian had arranged everything with his usual terrifying efficiency. A team of private pediatric nurses had been interviewed and vetted within 20 minutes of their arrival, and the most qualified candidate, a gentlewoman named Mrs. Higgins, who used to care for royalty, was currently settling Leo into a bespoke bassinet in the adjoining nursery. Evelyn stood under the rainfall shower, scrubbing her skin raw. She wanted to wash away the scent of the hospital, the feel of the cheap polyester gown, and the phantom sensation of Richard's hand holding hers during labor, a hand that belonged to a man who had already sold her out. She stepped out of the shower and wrapped herself in a plush fret bathrobe. When she entered the living area of the suite, Sebastian was waiting with a tray of smoked salmon, herbal tea, and a stack of fresh dossiers. "The DNA sample for Master Leo has been dispatched to the lab," Sebastian reported, pouring the tea. "We paid the expedite fee. Results in 24 hours, though we already know the outcome." Evelyn sat on the velvet sofa, tucking her legs underneath her. Beatrice needs that test to fail. It's her only moral justification for tossing us out. Morality is not a currency Beatrice Thornton trades in, ma'am. Only leverage. Sebastian handed her a cup. Speaking of which, the hold on the Vanguard capital funding has been executed. The automated notification system just sent the alert to the Thornton Real Estate CFO. Evelyn took a sip of tea, the warmth spreading through her chest. What time is it? 7:30 p.m. They will be at dinner. Evelyn closed her eyes, visualizing the scene. The Thornton Manor, a sprawling, drafty estate in Greenwich that smelled of old money and decaying mahogany. They always ate at 7:30 sharp, Beatrice at the head of the table, Richard at her right. And tonight, the empty chair at his left wouldn't be empty. Sophia Kensington will be there, Evelyn stated. It wasn't a question. Indeed, her social media feed indicates she is celebrating a new chapter with my love, Ricky. She posted a picture of a sapphire engagement ring an hour ago. Evelyn's cup rattled slightly against the saucer. He proposed? Today? The day his son was born? It appears Beatrice didn't want to waste any time cementing the deal. A single tear escaped Evelyn's eye, hot and fast. She wiped it away angrily. This was the hardest part, the realization that her 2-year romance hadn't just ended. It had been a performance. Richard hadn't just fallen out of love. He had been actively auditioning her replacement while she carried his child. "Why did I do it, Sebastian?" she whispered. "Why did I hide who I was?" Sebastian softened. He sat in the armchair opposite her. "Because after your father, Harrison Sterling, passed away, you were the richest 22-year-old on the eastern seaboard. Every man who approached you saw dollar signs. Not Evelyn. You wanted what your parents had. True affection. Unconditional love. And I found a con artist with a weak chin and a mummy complex," she said bitterly. "You found a lesson, Mum. A very expensive lesson for Mr. Thornton." Sebastian stood up, his professional demeanor returning. "Rest now. Tomorrow, the war begins in earnest. I've arranged for a wardrobe stylist to be here at 8 a.m. The sweatpants, with respect, must go." At that precise moment, in the dining room of Thornton Manor, the mood was celebratory. Crystal glasses clinked under the light of a massive chandelier. Beatrice was positively beaming, a rare sight. She raised her glass of Dom Perignon. To new beginnings, and to trimming the fat. Richard, looking slightly flushed from the wine, clinked his glass against Sophia Kensington's. Sophia was everything Evelyn wasn't. Loud, blonde, and draped in logos. Her father owned Kensington Logistics, the company that was supposed to save Thornton Real Estate from sinking. "Oh, Beatrice, stop," Sophia giggled, admiring the sapphire on her finger. "You make it sound like we murdered someone. Richard just finally came to his senses." She leaned over and pecked Richard on the cheek. "Didn't you, Ricky?" Richard smiled weakly. "Right. Yeah. It's for the best." He kept checking his phone, half expecting a text from Evelyn, begging to be let back in. But there was nothing. "I still can't believe she actually signed," Beatrice gloated, slicing into her medium-rare filet mignon. "I thought she'd put up more of a fight. Just goes to show, those types of girls always have a price. $10,000 and she practically ran out the door." "What about the baby?" Sophia asked, wrinkling her nose. "I mean, we aren't keeping it, right? That doesn't fit with our 5-year plan, Ricky. We'll put it up for adoption quietly once the paternity test comes back negative," Beatrice said dismissively. "Or, if by some tragic twist of fate it is Richard's, we'll pay the girl off to keep it away from here." We don't need that baggage. Richard winced. Mother, it is a boy. And he looked. He looked like a mistake, Richard, Beatrice snapped. Focus. Tomorrow the funding from the Kensington merger hits our accounts. $40 million. We can finally pay off the bridge loans from Deutsche Bank and stabilize the stock. Just then, Beatrice's personal phone, which sat face up on the table, buzzed violently. It was a priority alert email. Beatrice frowned. She hated interruptions during dinner. She picked it up, adjusting her reading glasses. As she read the subject line, the color drained from her face, leaving her makeup looking like a grotesque mask. Urgent capital injection. Hold Kensington, Thornton. Merger file. 992. What is it, Mother? Richard asked, sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere. Beatrice's hand shook as she opened the email. It was from the lead financing partner, Vanguard Capital. Dear Mrs. Thornton, due to unforeseen compliance issues and pending due diligence review regarding executive leadership stability at Thornton Real Estate, the scheduled wire transfer of $40,000 has been placed on an indefinite administrative hold. We apologize for the inconvenience. Indefinite administrative hold, Beatrice whispered, her voice barely audible. What? Sophia asked. Hold on what? The money, Beatrice gasped, dropping the phone into her mashed potatoes. The merger money. It didn't go through. Richard stood up so fast his chair fell over. What do you mean it didn't go through? We have payroll on Friday. If that money doesn't hit by tomorrow at noon, the bank calls the loan. We're bankrupt, Mother. It must be a mistake, Beatrice stammered, frantically wiping potato off her phone. A computer glitch. I'll call Carlton at Vanguard. He'll fix it. She dialed the personal number of the VP at Vanguard Capital, a man she had schmoozed for months. It went straight to voicemail. He's not answering. Beatrice looked up, pure terror in her eyes. Well, fix it, Ricky, Sophia demanded, her voice shrill. My daddy isn't signing the final papers until your side of the funding is secure. That was the deal. The celebratory dinner dissolved into chaos. Richard was pacing, Beatrice was hyperventilating, and Sophia was worried about how this would affect her engagement party planning. None of them suspected that the compliance issue was currently sitting in a penthouse 10 miles away, drinking chamomile tea and watching their world begin to burn. The next morning broke bright and clear, the storm having passed, leaving the city scrubbed clean. Evelyn stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling mirror in her suite. The transformation was startling. The exhausted new mother in sweatpants was gone. In her place stood Evelyn Sterling, CEO. She wore a tailored cream power suit by Alexander McQueen that accentuated her figure while screaming authority. Her hair, usually thrown into a messy bun, was blown out into sleek, glossy waves. Her makeup was flawless, a coat of armor against the world. But it was her eyes that had changed the most. The softness was gone, replaced by a chilling resolve. The car is ready, Mum, Sebastian said, stepping into the room. He held out a new phone, a secure, encrypted device. And your new number is active. Only 5 people on the planet have it. How are the Thorntons this morning? Evelyn asked, taking the phone. Predictably desperate. Beatrice has been calling the Vanguard offices every 10 minutes since 6 a.m. They have her on hold indefinitely. Richard is currently at the Kensington offices, trying to convince Sophia's father that this is just a minor hiccup. And Mr. Kensington's reaction? He's a shark, Ma'am. He smells blood. He told Richard he has 24 hours to show proof of funds, or the deal is dead, and he's suing for breach of contract. Evelyn allowed herself a small, cold smile. Perfect. What's Beatrice's next move? Sebastian pulled up a dossier on his tablet. She's cornered. The major banks won't touch her with the Deutsche Bank loan looming. She's reaching out to secondary lenders, high interest, predatory types. She has a meeting at 11 a.m. with a firm called Ironclad Capital Partners. They are notorious for loan-to-own schemes. They'll give her enough rope to hang herself, then take the company properties as collateral. Ironclad, Evelyn mused, adjusting the cuffs of her blazer. Who owns them? It's opaque, a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. But their stateside broker is a man named Marcus Thorne. Sleazy, but effective. Evelyn walked over to the bassinet and kissed sleeping Leo on the forehead. He smelled of milk and innocence. Mrs. Higgins, I'll be back in 2 hours. Guard him with your life. Of course, Miss Sterling, the nanny replied quietly. Evelyn turned to Sebastian. Get Marcus Thorne on the phone. Tell him I want to buy Beatrice Thornton's debt before she even signs the paperwork. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. That will cost a significant premium, ma'am. Ironclad will want their pound of flesh. Offer them double their usual interest rate for an immediate buyout of the contract rights. Use the Sterling Private Equity Fund so my name doesn't appear. Evelyn put on oversized sunglasses. I don't want Beatrice to just owe money. I want her to owe me money. I want to own the very ground she's standing on when I pull the rug out. At 11:00 a.m., Beatrice Thornton sat in a plush, overly modern office in Midtown Manhattan, across from Marcus Thorne. Thorne was a man who wore too much hair gel and cologne that smelled like desperation and cheap leather. It's a standard bridge loan, Mrs. Thornton, Thorne said, sliding a thick document across the glass table. He smiled, showing too many teeth. $10 million, immediate liquidity. The interest rate is adjusted for the risk profile. Beatrice looked at the rate. 18%. It was highway robbery. This is extortion, Marcus. My company is sound. We just hit a snag with Vanguard. A $40 million snag, Thorne countered. Word on the street is you're taking on water fast, Beatrice. You sign this, you make payroll, you keep the lights on for another month. You don't sign it, the Kensington deal dies today. Beatrice's hand shook. She had no choice. She had spent a lifetime building the Thornton name, and she wouldn't let it collapse because of a momentary cash flow issue. She picked up the pen. Fine. But when the Vanguard money comes through next week, I'm refinancing immediately. Of course, Thorne waved his hand dismissively. Beatrice signed the papers. She felt sick to her stomach. 20 minutes after Beatrice left, grinning with relief that she had secured a lifeline, Marcus Thorne's phone rang. He listened for a moment, his smile widening. Yes, the paperwork is signed. The ink is still wet. Double the interest. Cash transfer today. Thorne laughed. Mr. Vance, it's a pleasure doing business with you. Tell your anonymous client that they just bought themselves $10 million of very distressed debt. Back at the Thornton Manor that evening, the mood was tense but hopeful. Beatrice had lied to Richard, telling him she secured a low-interest loan from an old friend. Richard was pacing the living room. Sophia is furious, Mother. Her dad is threatening to pull out anyway because of the instability. I need that DNA test back so we can officially get rid of Evelyn and the brat. Sophia doesn't want any loose ends before the wedding. The lab said end of day today, Beatrice said, sipping a martini. She felt safer now that she had the $10 million in the bank. Stop whining, Richard. We handle crises. That's what Thorntons do. We discarded the trash, and now we are securing the future. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was a courier. Richard signed for the envelope and ripped it open. It's the results. Beatrice stood up, walking over to him. Well, read it, 0% probability, correct? Then we call our lawyer and have him file the fraud charges against her." Richard stared at the paper. His face went completely slack. He read it again. Then a third time. "Richard, speak!" Beatrice snapped. Richard slowly looked up at his mother. He looked ill. "Probability of paternity. 99,999%. Beatrice snatched the paper from his hand. She stared at the numbers, her mind unable to process them. This is impossible," Beatrice whispered. She bribed someone. That little gold-digging waitress bribed the lab. "With what money, Mother?" Richard asked, his voice hollow. "We gave her nothing. She left with sweatpants and a bus pass. I don't care how she did it. This changes nothing." Beatrice crumpled the paper. "We will demand a retest. Court-ordered. We will drag this out until she starves." Richard sank onto the sofa. A strange feeling was bubbling up inside him. Not love, exactly, but a primal realization that he had a son, a flesh and blood heir, and he had abandoned them in a parking lot in the rain. "Maybe," Richard started weakly, "maybe we shouldn't have been so harsh. If he is a Thornton—" "Don't be an idiot, Richard," Beatrice hissed. "He is half peasant. He is a liability. We stick to the plan. We get the Kensington money, we marry you to Sophia, and we bury Evelyn in legal fees until she hands the child over for a reasonable settlement and disappears." Beatrice's phone pinged. It was an email notification from her bank. "Finally," she murmured. "That must be the transfer confirmation from Ironclad." She opened her banking app. Her eyes widened so far they almost split at the corners. A strangled cry escaped her throat. "Mother?" "What now?" Beatrice held up the phone, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The screen showed the Thornton real estate operating account. The balance was negative. "The 10 million from Ironclad hit the account," Beatrice choked out. And then, 2 minutes later, it was garnished. "Garnished? By who?" Richard yelled, rushing to her side. Beatrice stared at the transaction history. The massive withdrawal carried a simple, terrifying memo. "Garnishment notice, Deutsche Bank, loan default, acquired by Sterling Global Holdings." "Sterling Global Holdings?" Richard asked, confused. "Who are they? They bought our debt from Deutsche Bank." Beatrice looked like she was having a stroke. She recognized the name. Everyone in finance recognized the name. Sterling Global was the apex predator of the corporate world. "Why would Sterling Global be interested in us?" Beatrice whispered, true terror finally setting in. "We're ants to them." In the penthouse at the Ritz-Carlton, Evelyn watched the real-time banking alert flash on Sebastian's tablet. The first domino had fallen. The 10 million Beatrice borrowed to save herself had been instantly swallowed up by the debt Evelyn had purchased an hour earlier. Evelyn picked up her tea. "Sebastian, send Beatrice a standard foreclosure notice on the manor. Give her 30 days to vacate. Let's see how high society she feels living in a motel." 3 days had passed since the Thornton accounts were frozen. For Beatrice, they were 72 hours of hell. She had been forced to pawn her collection of vintage Cartier jewelry just to pay the catering deposit for the engagement party. Cancelling the party was not an option. In Beatrice's mind, perception was reality. If the world saw Richard and Sophia celebrating, the creditors would back off, assuming the Kensington merger money was imminent. The party was set for Friday night at the Pierre, one of Manhattan's most exclusive hotels. "Smile, Richard," Beatrice hissed, pinching her son's arm as they stood in the receiving line. "You look like you're at a funeral." Richard adjusted his tie. He looked thinner, haggard. "I can't reach Evelyn, Mother. Her phone is disconnected. The apartment is empty. I went by there today. She's gone." "Good riddance," Sophia interjected, sipping champagne. She was wearing a dress that cost more than most cars, but it hung awkwardly on her frame. She probably went back to whatever trailer park she crawled out of. Forget her, Ricky. Tonight is about us. The ballroom was filling up with New York's elite. Senators, tech moguls, and real estate tycoons. But the atmosphere was tense. Rumors of the Thornton financial troubles were circulating. People were whispering behind their hands. Then, the room went silent. The heavy oak doors at the main entrance swung open. Usually, guests arrived in a trickle. But the woman entering now commanded the attention of an entire army. It was Evelyn. But it wasn't the Evelyn they knew. This woman was a vision of vengeance, wrapped in crimson silk. She wore a custom Versace gown that clung to her curves, a dramatic slit revealing a leg that seemed to go on forever. Around her neck hung the Star of the East, a diamond necklace so rare that even Beatrice gasped when the light hit it. She wasn't alone. On her arm was Sebastian Vance, looking devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo. Behind them trailed two large bodyguards who looked like they ate concrete for breakfast. "Who is that?" Mr. Kensington, Sophia's father, asked, squinting through his glasses. "She looks familiar." "That," Beatrice choked, her champagne glass trembling. "That is the help." Evelyn didn't wait in line. She walked straight into the center of the room, her head held high. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. She wasn't just attending, she was invading. Sophia, fueled by jealousy and too much vodka, marched up to Evelyn. "What are you doing here? Security! Get this trash out of here! She's crashing my party!" The music stopped. The entire room watched. Evelyn looked down at Sophia, an amused smirk playing on her red lips. "Crashing? Hardly. I own the venue." Sophia laughed nervously. "You're delusional. This is the Pierre." "Correct," Evelyn said, her voice smooth and projected perfectly for the room to hear. "And as of this morning, Sterling Global Hospitality acquired the majority stake in the holding company that operates this hotel. Technically, Sophia, you're standing in my living room." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Mr. Kensington stepped forward, his eyes wide. "Sterling Global, you represent the Sterling family." Sebastian stepped forward. "Correction, Mr. Kensington. She is the Sterling family. May I present Evelyn Sterling, chairwoman and CEO of Sterling Global Industries." Beatrice dropped her glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Sterling," Richard whispered, staring at his wife, his estranged wife, as if he were seeing a ghost. "Harrison Sterling's daughter? The heiress?" Evelyn turned her gaze to Beatrice. It was cold enough to freeze magma. "Hello, Beatrice. I received the foreclosure notice I sent you. I assume you're enjoying your last 30 days at the manor?" "You," Beatrice stammered, her face turning a blotchy purple. "You lied. You deceived us. You played the poor orphan." "I didn't lie," Evelyn said calmly, stepping closer so only the family could hear. "I told you I had no family. That is true. My parents are dead. I told you I wanted a simple life. That was true. But you didn't want simple, did you? You wanted money. You treated me like a stray dog because you thought I had no value." She leaned in, her voice a whisper of steel. "You wanted a fortune, Beatrice. Well, now you have my full attention, and I promise you I am much more expensive as an enemy than I ever was as a daughter-in-law." "Ricky, do something," Sophia screeched, realizing her engagement spotlight was being stolen. "She's lying. She's just a barista." Mr. Kensington silenced his daughter with a sharp look. He walked up to Evelyn, extending his hand, ignoring his own future son-in-law. "Ms. Sterling, I had no idea. I've been trying to get a meeting with your acquisition team for months regarding my logistics fleet." Evelyn took his hand briefly. "We can talk, Mr. Kensington. But I generally don't do business with families who associate with the Thorntons. Their financial hygiene is lacking." Mr. Kensington withdrew his hand as if burned, looking at Richard with disgust. "Is that so?" "Wait." Richard stepped forward, desperation in his eyes. "Eve, please. We can talk about this. We're married. That baby, Leo, he's my son. We're a family." Evelyn laughed. It was a dark, hollow sound. "A family? You stood by and watched your mother hand me divorce papers while I was bleeding in a hospital bed, Richard. You don't get to claim family, now that you know my net worth." She turned to Sebastian. "I'm bored. This party is tacky. Let's go inspect the wine cellar." As Evelyn walked away, the room erupted into whispers. The engagement party was effectively over. Mr. Kensington was already on his phone, presumably cancelling the merger. Beatrice stood amidst the shattered glass of her life, watching the woman she had discarded walk away with everything she had ever coveted. But Beatrice Thornton was a cornered animal. And cornered animals bite. Monday morning brought a grey, drizzling sky to New York City. Inside the family court building, the atmosphere was suffocating. Beatrice had played her final card. Over the weekend, fueled by humiliation and rage, she had filed an emergency ex parte motion for full custody of Leo. Her affidavit claimed that Evelyn was mentally unstable, homeless, and had fraudulently impersonated a person of means to kidnap the child. It was a desperate lie, but Beatrice had hired Arthur Finch, the nastiest, most aggressive divorce attorney in the state. Finch was known as the Shark. He didn't care about the truth. He cared about destroying the opposition. Evelyn sat at the defendant's table. She wasn't wearing the red dress today. She wore a somber, navy blue Chanel suit, looking every bit the concerned mother. Next to her sat not Sebastian, but a woman named Eleanor Vance, Sebastian's sister and the top family law litigator in the country. Richard sat on the other side, looking like a man marching to the gallows. He wouldn't meet Evelyn's eyes. Beatrice sat behind him, her face a mask of stony determination. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Loretta Barnes swept in. She was a no-nonsense woman who had seen every lie in the book. She sat down and adjusted her glasses, looking over the mountain of paperwork. "We are here on an emergency motion regarding the infant, Leo Thornton," Judge Barnes said. "Mr. Finch, you represent the father. You are claiming the mother is unfit?" "We are, Your Honor," Finch boomed, standing up and buttoning his jacket. "The mother, Evelyn Sterling, or whatever alias she is using today, has no fixed address. She fled the hospital against medical advice hours after birth. She has no employment. My clients, the Thorntons, are a prominent, stable family with the means to provide for the child. We believe the child is in imminent danger of neglect." Judge Barnes looked at Evelyn. "Ms. Vance, does your client wish to respond?" Eleanor Vance stood up calmly. "Your Honor, the allegations are not only false, they are defamatory. Ms. Sterling left the hospital because she was evicted by the child's grandmother immediately after giving birth." "Objection!" Finch yelled. "Hearsay!" "I have the hospital security logs," Eleanor said, sliding a document to the bailiff. "And regarding the no fixed address claim," Beatrice leaned forward and whispered to Finch. "She's staying at a hotel. Push the instability angle. Judges hate hotels." Finch nodded. "Your Honor, living out of a suitcase in a hotel is hardly a stable environment for a newborn. The Thorntons have a multi-million-dollar estate with a dedicated nursery. The choice is clear." Judge Barnes looked at Evelyn. "Ms. Sterling, where are you currently residing?" Evelyn stood up. "For the past few nights, I have been at the Ritz-Carlton, Your Honor." Beatrice smirked. "Got her." "However," Evelyn continued, her voice steady, "that was while my primary residence was being prepared. As of this morning, Leo and I are residing at 1040 Fifth Avenue, the penthouse." The courtroom went silent. 1040 Fifth Avenue was one of the most expensive buildings in New York. The penthouse hadn't been on the market for decades. "The Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis building?" The judge raised an eyebrow. "You are renting." "I purchased it, Your Honor. Cash. Yesterday." Beatrice let out a loud gasp. "She's lying. She's a barista. She makes minimum wage." "Order!" Judge Barnes slammed her gavel. "Mrs. Thornton, one more outburst and you will be removed." Eleanor Vance handed another thick folder to the bailiff. "Your Honor, included in this file is my client's financial affidavit. It includes the deed to the Fifth Avenue property, as well as her bank statements and trust fund verification." Judge Barnes opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first page, then she stopped. She flipped the page, her eyes widening slightly. She looked up at Evelyn, then back at the paper. "Mr. Finch," Judge Barnes said, her voice strangely quiet. "Have you seen this?" "No, Your Honor. I assume it's a forgery," Finch scoffed. "It is verified by the SEC and the IRS," Judge Barnes said. "According to this, Ms. Sterling's net worth is substantial. In the billions." Finch froze. He looked at Beatrice. Beatrice looked like she was going to vomit. "Billions?" Richard whispered. "Billions with a B?" "Furthermore," Judge Barnes continued, her tone hardening as she looked at the Thorntons, "I see here a copy of a petition for dissolution of marriage presented to Ms. Sterling in the hospital. It offers her $10,000 to waive her rights." The judge took off her glasses and stared at Richard. "Mr. Thornton, you tried to buy off the mother of your child for $10,000? A woman who could buy and sell your entire family 10 times over before breakfast? I did what my mother said," Richard stammered, sealing his fate. "He admits it," Evelyn said quietly. "He has no backbone, Your Honor, and his mother is vindictive. She tried to separate me from my son because she thought I was poor. Now she wants him because she knows I'm rich. Leo is not a pawn. He is my son." "Ms. Sterling," Judge Barnes said, "I am dismissing the father's motion for custody with prejudice. Furthermore, I am granting you temporary sole legal and physical custody pending a full trial. Mr. Thornton, you may have supervised visitation every other Saturday for 2 hours. Beatrice Thornton is to have no contact with the child whatsoever." "What?" Beatrice shrieked, standing up. "I am his grandmother. You can't do this. This court is corrupt. She bought you off." "Bailiff," Judge Barnes barked, "remove that woman from my courtroom immediately." 2 officers grabbed Beatrice by the arms. She kicked and screamed as she was dragged out, her Chanel suit bunching up, her dignity completely gone. "You'll pay for this, Evelyn," Beatrice screamed as the door swung shut. "You'll pay!" Richard sat alone at the table, his head in his hands. Finch was already packing his briefcase, looking at Richard with disdain. "My retainer just doubled. If you can even afford me." Evelyn walked past Richard on her way out. She stopped for a brief second. "Eve," Richard whispered, tears in his eyes. "I didn't know." "That's the problem, Richard," Evelyn said softly. "You never tried to know me. You only looked at the label. And now you can't afford the price." She walked out of the courtroom, Eleanor and Sebastian flanking her. The legal battle was won, but the war wasn't over. Beatrice was destroyed publicly and legally, but a woman like that didn't just disappear. She festered. Outside on the courthouse steps, the paparazzi were waiting. Someone had tipped them off about the secret billionaire barista. Flashbulbs exploded as Evelyn put on her sunglasses. "Miss Sterling, is it true you bought the Thornton debt? Miss Sterling, are you suing for full custody?" Evelyn ignored them, moving toward the waiting SUV. But just as she reached the door, a man in a frantic, disheveled suit broke through the press line. It was Marcus Thorne, the predatory lender. "Miss Sterling, please!" Thorne panted, looking terrified. "You need to see this. It's about Beatrice. She's not just broke. She's done something crazy." Sebastian blocked him. "Back off." "No, listen," Thorne yelled, waving a tablet. "She leveraged the life insurance policies. She took out a policy on herself and the baby. Before the birth." Evelyn stopped. She turned slowly. "What did you say?" "She took out a key person insurance policy on the unborn child," Thorne said, shaking. "It pays out $5 million if the child doesn't make it to his first birthday. She used it as collateral for a loan from the muddy side of the tracks. People I don't even deal with." A cold chill, colder than any winter wind, went through Evelyn. Beatrice hadn't just wanted to steal the baby. She had bet against his life to secure a loan. And now that she was broke, humiliated, and banned from seeing him, Beatrice had nothing left to lose. Evelyn looked at Sebastian. "Get in the car, now. We need to increase security details, quadruple them." The war wasn't over. It had just turned deadly. The revelation that Beatrice Thornton had taken out a key person insurance policy on her own grandson, betting on his death to pay her debts, turned the corporate war into a survival thriller. Evelyn retreated to her penthouse fortress at 1040 Fifth Avenue, but safety was an illusion. The intercom buzzed, and a battered Richard stumbled out of the elevator. He was bloody and breathless. "She's coming, Eve," Richard gasped. "She owes loan sharks millions. She hired mercenaries to take Leo. She needs the insurance payout." Before Evelyn could react, the penthouse lights died. The service elevator, which Beatrice knew the override codes for, blasted open. Beatrice stormed in, looking deranged, wielding a revolver and flanked by 2 armed men. "Hello, family," Beatrice cackled, her eyes wild with desperation. "I created this legacy, and I will not let it die. Give me the boy." "You're insane, mother," Richard screamed, standing between Beatrice and the nursery door. "He's your grandson." "He is a paycheck," Beatrice shrieked. "I have nothing left. I will not go to prison poor." She raised the gun, aiming at Evelyn. Sebastian, Evelyn's COO, lunged at the mercenaries, disarming one. But Beatrice remained focused. She pulled the hammer back. "No!" Richard roared. Summoning a courage he had never possessed before, Richard launched himself at his mother, just as she squeezed the trigger. Bang! The gunshot echoed like a cannon. Richard slumped to the floor, a blooming red stain on his chest. Beatrice dropped the gun, staring at her bleeding son in horror. The realization of what she had done finally broke through her madness. Sirens wailed outside. Sebastian kicked the gun away as SWAT teams flooded the room. They dragged a screaming Beatrice away in handcuffs, her dynasty ending not in glory, but in a cage. 6 months later, the Thornton Manor was unrecognizable, bright, airy, and filled with the scent of white roses. Evelyn sat on the terrace, watching Leo giggle in his walker. "The quarterly reports are excellent," Sebastian said, placing a letter on the table. "And this arrived from Montana." It was from Richard. He had survived the gunshot miraculously, but he hadn't returned to his old life. "Dear Eve, I'm working on a cattle ranch now. Real work. My hands are blistered, but for the first time I feel like a man. I can't be a father to Leo yet. Not until I've built something real to offer him. Tell him his dad saved him. Tell him I'm learning to be brave. Love, Rick." Evelyn smiled, watching her son reach for a butterfly. She had lost a husband, but found her strength. Beatrice was rotting in a cell, Richard was finding his soul, and Evelyn Sterling. She was just getting started. She picked up Leo and whispered, "We're going to change the world, little lion." What a journey. From a cold hospital room where a mother was discarded like trash to the dizzying heights of corporate warfare. And finally, a heart-stopping showdown that proved money can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy redemption. Evelyn proved that true power isn't about wealth, it's about the strength to protect what you love. Beatrice Thornton learned the hard way that when you dig a grave for someone else, you usually fall in yourself. And Richard? Well, he learned that it's never too late to find your backbone, even if you have to lose everything to find it. I want to know what you would have done. If you were Evelyn, would you have forgiven Richard after he took that bullet? Or was the betrayal too deep? And did Beatrice get what she deserved, or did she get off easy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of a story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. I have an even crazier drama coming up next week about a runaway bride and a mafia prince that you do not want to miss. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.